What happens when a master filmmaker tackles themes of colonial guilt and moral decay in a remote African construction site? The answer might surprise you and divide audiences right down the middle. Claire Denis has returned to the Toronto International Film Festival with The Fence, a film that dares to confront uncomfortable truths about Western exploitation and power dynamics. But here's where it gets controversial. This isn't your typical feel-good cinema experience, and some viewers might find themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about justice and accountability. The movie's title operates on multiple levels, something Denis fans have come to expect from this visionary director. Yes, there's a physical barrier separating a dusty, remote construction facility from the surrounding community. But the real barriers? Those are invisible, cutting through the soul of every character like razor wire. On one side of this literal fence stands Albury, portrayed with quiet intensity by Isaach de Bankolé. He's a local villager with a devastatingly simple demand: return his brother's body. The brother allegedly died in what officials are calling a workplace accident. But we all know how these stories usually go, don't we? On the opposite side, we find Horn, brought to life by Dillon in a performance that will make you uncomfortable in all the right ways. He's the worn-down foreman caught between his conscience and his paycheck, desperately trying to juggle his girlfriend's unexpected arrival while protecting a construction manager who might just be responsible for that accidental death. But here's the part most people miss. Denis, working alongside co-writers Andrew Litvak and Suzanne Linden, yes, daughter of Vincent Linden, has adapted Bernard-Marie Koltès' stage play, Black Battles with Dogs, into something that feels both theatrical and cinematically alive. The source material's Beckett-inspired foundation gets elevated through Denis' signature expressionistic touches. Imagine photorealistic CGI nightmares of dogs ripping through human flesh, or the way warm colors clash against shadowy spaces like emotions battling in the dark. The majority of the drama unfolds at the border of this construction site, where volatile weather seems to mirror the emotional storm brewing between an evasive middle manager and a man who refuses to be silenced. Denis masterfully fills the space with desire and terror until they become almost indistinguishable, a technique that might make some viewers squirm with recognition. Albury's unwavering stance begins to unravel Horn's composure, forcing him to confront the brutal reality that his condescending diplomatic tactics and Western-style negotiation methods are utterly powerless against someone who's fluent in the language of oppression. And this is where Denis really challenges her audience. Are we supposed to sympathize with Horn's predicament? Or are we meant to feel the weight of centuries of colonial arrogance crashing down? Meanwhile, Cal, Tom Blyth, is experiencing his own psychological breakdown under the crushing weight of his actions. In one particularly memorable scene that some critics might call heavy-handed, he cathartically belts out Midnight Oil's "Beds Are Burning" from his car. How can we dance when our earth is turning? How can we sleep when our beds are burning? It's one of two deliberately obvious soundtrack choices, the other being Kylie Minogue's "Can't Get You Out of My Head," that either brilliantly underscore the character's mental states or feel like cinematic sledgehammers, depending on your perspective. Blyth's portrayal showcases impatient body language and sneering delivery that reaches peak intensity when he's forced to escort Horn's girlfriend, Leonie, Mia McKenna-Bruce, from the airport. Leonie arrives wearing heels to navigate the harsh West African landscape, a detail that perfectly encapsulates her complete unpreparedness for this environment. Cal exploits her vulnerability with condescending delight, but his attraction to her quickly turns menacing as he struggles against becoming the third wheel in her relationship with Horn, especially knowing that Horn might very well throw him under the bus to appease Albury's village. The Fence pulses with brooding sensuality that partially masks some of the film's more problematic elements, namely its occasionally stilted staging and dialogue that sometimes feels like it's underlining its thesis with a fluorescent marker. Whether this clumsiness stems from the original play or the adaptation process remains unclear, but it's hard to ignore. However, Denis truly shines when she leans into her exceptional ability to capture the physical reality of bodies in conflict. Watch for the moment when a mentally and physically fragile Leonie collapses into Horn's shadow-bathed arms, or when Horn and Cal square off like territorial animals. Their positioning on screen shifting with their fluctuating moral authority. Hypocrisy and corruption flow through this post-colonial landscape like crude oil, finally erupting to the surface where Horn and Cal, who ironically spend their days building things above ground, mistakenly believed they were safe. And this is the part that might spark heated debates. De Bankolé, presumably reflecting his character's role in the source material, receives significantly less screen time and dialogue than his white counterparts. He spends most of the film delivering ominous stares in Dillon's direction, yet his steely determination makes a profound impact, particularly as Albury's mere presence begins to be interpreted as an act of aggression. His straightforward motivation, bringing his brother home, stands in stark contrast to the murky, complex drives of the other three characters. Here's where things get psychologically messy. Is Cal drawn to Leonie because he craves the status her validation would provide, or because she threatens his relationship with Horn? A relationship that might extend beyond professional boundaries. Leonie's life back in Britain was likely precarious and unstable, but her impulsive decision to relocate to this isolated West African outpost with a man she barely knows suggests even deeper psychological instability. Horn's position as a company man offers relative power without true authority, hinting that self-preservation might drive his need to shield Cal from Albury's implied accusations, though a shared secret from their past could also be influencing his choices. The film's performances and screenplay hint at these motivations without providing complete answers, and Denis deliberately chooses to let them swirl chaotically within the liminal space of the construction site. Surrounded by barriers and guarded by African security personnel who call out to each other like a Greek chorus, the headquarters housing Horn, Cal, and their team functions as a hollow void filled with containers and equipment. Greed and exploitation flourish in a space originally designed for community building. Denis emphasizes this concept when Leonie, dressed in a striking red gown late in the film, moves through the expansively dark space. Cinematographer Eric Gauthier captures her in a chilling wide shot that creates the unsettling impression that the area might consume her entirely. While Horn and Cal have grown dangerously comfortable in their privileged sanctuary, Leonie's presence alone exposes its jarring disconnect from the surrounding environment. McKenna-Bruce's performance occasionally lacks precision in the fence, but it truly sparkles when she uses her character's naivety to expose the violent corruption embedded within the worksite. Dillon, conversely, relies too heavily on wooden, overly obvious delivery, particularly in the dramatically charged scenes with De Bankolé, which tend to neutralize the film's carefully constructed ambiguity. Blyth emerges as the standout, largely because his character wrestles with the most internal conflict, though his oscillation between bullying condescension and pathetic vulnerability creates jarring tonal shifts. The deterministic narrative trajectory of The Fence ultimately becomes its greatest weakness. At a certain point, the film begins going through the motions toward its inevitable downbeat conclusion, making its dramatic shortcomings impossible to overlook. Denis's finest work typically features an emotional core that infiltrates the subconscious, bypassing simplistic explanations and linguistic limitations while deepening the political or genre framework. The Fence suffers from the absence of such passionate depth, leaving her textured imagery, though occasionally powerful in isolation, without substantial impact. Final grade, B-. The Fence made its debut at the 2025 Toronto International Film Festival and is currently seeking distribution in the United States. So here's my question for you. Does Denis succeed in creating a meaningful commentary on post-colonial power dynamics? Or does the film get too bogged down in its own theatrical origins to make a real impact? And here's the controversial part that most critics won't mention. Is it problematic that the African character, gets the least development in a story supposedly about confronting colonial exploitation? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think this oversight undermines the entire message, or does it actually reinforce the film's themes in an uncomfortably realistic way?